Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could teach the gullible to never be so comfortable with lies they eat like comfort food, to disregard the bogus claims and pseudoscientific claims? Can you imagine just how much indeed the world would change? No more political predators playing on the
good.
Homemade noodles. Marty, stop.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could teach the gullible to never be so comfortable with lies they eat like comfort food, to disregard the bogus claims and pseudoscientific claims? Can you imagine just how much indeed the world would change? No more political predators playing on the populace, but ilkas and plots to shift and kill metropolis. No more villains with the title in the Bible, holding phony temperatures like the stuff they teach is vital. Imagine it was no one left to prove a claim you make, and folks really feel ashamed to express some content that was fake. It's not to say we never make mistakes, it's just to say we go out of our way to show the evidence it takes.
Remain skeptical while you travel the road, the reason stay strapped with logic and facts. That's what it is, yo. Keep reality intact, help the truth, bro. Question everything, especially the ones you believe in. Remain skeptical while you travel the road, the reason.
Hey guys, I'm Rob Penzak.
And I'm Larry Mendoza.
Welcome to Road to Reason, a skeptic's guide to the 21st century. If you were grooving to that tune, you're going to be really excited today. We have the author of that musical bit. So Landon Taylor, aka Tombstone Da Deadman, is joining us today. We're going to run through some news and little informational stuff first and bring him on in about 15 minutes. So can't wait to do that part of the show.
It'll be interesting, yeah.
A couple bits of information. Next week we're going to have David Tamayo on. Usually you hear that in polite conversation.
Marty, stop it. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. It reminds me, I've been thinking maybe we should try a new form of birth control.
So we're going to be talking about new forms of birth control. No, we're having a couple little problems there. But next week, David Tamayo is going to be on. You hear that in polite conversation. You don't want to mix religion and politics and start talking about those. They're going to challenge that concept next week, because as you mentioned, those are really important issues to talk about. So I hope you guys will tune in for that. In August, we're going to have, Karen Gerst, the feminist, faithless feminist, is going to be on. And after that, David Smalley from Dogma Debates, talking about the expanding literature in the atheist arena.
Yeah, so we have a great lineup, so keep watching the show if you've been watching, and if you have friends that are interested, let them know about the show.
Right, so like us on Facebook if you're enjoying it, send some comments in, let us know what topics you want us to discuss, if you have any suggestions of authors to bring in or activists. We really do want to hear from the community. And today you'll have a chance, if you want to call in and talk to Tombstone, go for it. We'll have that number up on the screen a little bit later. So why don't you start us with some news?
Okay, so some news. So recently there's been a lot of ruckus around the Confederate flag in South Carolina. As you know, it was voted to be taken down from the state capitol. It's been there for over 50 years, I believe. And I've been getting into a lot of arguments with people about the Confederate flag and its meaning. And I just wanted to kind of give a little bit of my opinion on, and I think a little bit of historical facts about the Confederate flag and what it really represented. And this kind of ties into with religion in a way, and also what's happening in Texas with revisionism of history. So it's clear as day that the Confederate States, what they represented, what they wanted, and the reason why they seceded was the central dogma of that was slavery. Okay, there's actually absolutely no reason to deny that, but what we are seeing is revisionists that are trying to change that. I can go, besides the articles of the secession from Mississippi, Texas, Virginia, South Carolina, and Georgia, in their declaration of secession, they all said slavery is the main reason that we are leaving the nation. Without getting into too much detail about the politics at the time, but also the cornerstone speech that the Vice President of the Confederacy gave, he was the Vice President Alexander Stephens. He gave a cornerstone speech in 1861 in Savannah, Georgia. And in this cornerstone speech of secession, it's slavery. So let's not kid ourselves with this argument of heritage versus hate, because the heritage in and of itself represents white supremacy. So, and that's also kind of tied into the thought at the time where religion played a big, strong factor in the South with a lot of people. And there was a gentleman by the name of Robert L. Dabney, and I believe I might have mentioned this on the show before. He was a Southern Presbyterian minister. who wrote a book called A Defense of Virginia and Through Her the South. And this book is nothing more than a biblical justification, a biblical Old and New Testament. He divides the book in Old Testament justification for slavery and New Testament justification for slavery. And he gives reasons why slavery was important both religiously, economically, and it just as part of the everyday life of the Southern life. So when I hear these people trying to revise history, it makes me wonder, why are they doing this?
Well, we know why they're doing it. There's all sorts of reasons to deny it, but the moral zeitgeist has marched on, and as per usual, society is dragging religion along to recognize, oh yeah, slavery wasn't such a good thing. So there's every reason in the world for religion to try to revise what actually happened in history and pretend that they weren't a big part of it.
The problem is we cannot learn from our mistakes if we try to whitewash them away. And this is what worries me about this whole revisionist history, is that it's not just something that you're seeing on the internet on some right-wing, extreme right-wing or whatever conspiracy news website. This is now happening in Texas. They just passed, the School Board of Education just passed legislation that approved or passed history books that do not mention Jim Crow, don't mention the KKK, and mention slavery as not a primary reason for the Civil War. And that is revising history. And
and what happens in Texas also, they control a lot of the textbooks for big regions of the country.
Absolutely.
So everything spills out of Texas immediately, and all of the kids are going to be mislearning history and then not able to draw proper conclusions from what transpires when you believe this stuff.
So it kind of leads me to believe this. It's scary because we are having a group of people that have a certain ideology, that have a certain view of history for whatever reason, and there are many, and I'm not going to get into that now, but I have my theories on why they're doing this. But we're not teaching our kids anything. I thought the revisionism was just in the sciences. Now we're seeing it in history, which is just as dangerous as far as educating our voters. And now we're seeing, people, and I think we're going to talk a little bit about this as far as electing, judges and things like that under false pretense. And these people are not going to make laws or decide
and
laws.
Propaganda really works. I mean, the reason they do this is that it works. And if you want to pretend that history went a different way, now you can certainly justify living a different way, and you're going to lead to new policies, new laws, and it affects everybody, and it's really troubling. We will talk about a couple of justices, but when you have the Supreme Court led by a bunch of zealots, when Scalia wants to throw out the Constitution, put the Bible in its place, when John Roberts feels he can just declare that racism is over and we're post-racial America and gut the voting's right, when Clarence Thomas can go for years without uttering a word so he doesn't have to weigh in and think about things, forgets to the hundreds of thousands that they were given from the Heritage Foundation to declare that as taxes. We have such a group at the top of the judicial system that are leading us to oblivion, and it becomes hard. How do you, other than getting rid of those people, what's our path to correct this now? And voting is critical. Every time you vote in a new president, one or two justices may get put in for life to run the Supreme Court, and as we've seen with case after case, it makes an enormous difference who's there. The law is not so black and white right now. It's really interpreted a great deal, and it matters who's in office.
And this should not even be a Democrat versus a Republican issue. This should be about facts, reality. And it's just scary to me that I'm seeing presidential candidates right now denying evolution, denying very basic things, trying to revise history, trying to whitewash the importance of slavery in our history because they want to use the Confederate flag for whatever reason. This heritage,
and the opposition to education. We saw with, I think it was Rick Santorum, where he's talking about how it's snobbish to think people might want to go to college. This is just absurd. First and foremost, we should want to create critical thinkers if you're really interested in the truth. Create people that understand how to get at the truth. Unfortunately,
critical thinking is something that religion doesn't like very much. And so when you have extremely religious zealots running for political offices, right now we have an organization that is actually training preachers on how to become politicians, how to run for school boards and local offices, and in order to promote this theocracy, essentially, is what it is. And that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing this trying to revise science, revise history in order to promote this idea that, we're trying to change the Constitution, essentially. I mean, we have everybody claims the Constitution. We got to follow the Constitution, but we are essentially completely destroying that with trying to interject religion in every aspect of our government, from education on up to the Supreme Court and everything in between. And that's scary.
That is scary.
And that's a path to what? What is that a path to? You know, as we know, when we destroy an educated populace, when we destroy educated voters, that's a way to control them. And what's happened in history when that's happened? We've seen fascism, we've seen Nazism, these people. And I'd hate to see that, but that's what seems
right now
to be happening.
I'm reading an interesting book, The American Taliban, by the guy who founded the Daily Kos, and it goes through a lot of these things. I guess the main point is that none of this is an accident, and the policies that we make really do affect people's lives. We're going to kind of jump ahead here.
Yep.
So one brief thing I just wanted to mention, these are some articles from the Dawkins fight, talked about the Taj Mahal. There's a suicide pact with two young lovers, one was Muslim, one was Hindu, that naturally were being kept apart by their parents. And so this seems extreme, but then it recalled to my mind that we had, a rabbi, I don't know, a decade ago, who was very nice to our family and to somebody in the family who was sick and seemed like a very kind person, who disowned his son because he married somebody who wasn't Jewish. And so, again, there's always this, thing that you have to think about is how much of religion in moderation, how much of that is okay. And then how much is it going to spill over to bad things? So here are just like two cases where one couple tried to commit suicide. This is strictly about religion, and people who don't see the divisive properties of religion, hopefully look at some of these things.
It's they say religion is love, but here are a couple who is in love, and they're reduced to they feel like they have no choice but to commit suicide.
It's love within the strict confines that specific sect of that specific religion agrees with.
And it's sad. It really is sad.
Yeah. So last piece of news I want to move on to was Governor Sam Brownback of Kansas. Let me see if I have that over here. So he was basically trying to suggest that his religious liberty is trying to pass a new order that would exempt the religion from following the Supreme Court's decision about equality of marriage. And so our person of the week, our secular person of the week, is going to be Reverend Barry Lynn, who's trying to point out that religious liberty doesn't mean that you can impose your bigotry on everybody else in the world, which is exactly what he's doing. And again, these aren't just fringe extremists now. These are people that are governors and senators and have been presidents.
They've become the mainstream in certain circles and certain political ideologies. And Reverend Barry Lynn, by the way, is the
executive director for Americans United for Separation of Church and State. Rob Boston's been out a couple times from that organization, and we'll have to get in touch with Reverend Lynn and see if
he'd like to come on the show. Yeah.
So I think we're going to leave it at that. We'll go to announcement in a second. We're going to do a joke of the week. I think we're putting forth really the Supreme Court with how theocratic it's become, and really our whole legal system, which is not an even playing field, and you can steal millions and you'll be fine, or you can sort of be caught up in your milieu, which is a bad situation, and you will be punished for life. Anyway, let's move on so we can here. We'll be back in a couple minutes.
Homemade noodles. Marty, stop it. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. It reminds me, I've been thinking maybe we should try a new form of birth control. I heard about this one. It's called the IUD, intrauterine device. Or we could try the patch on your arm. Actually, I think that one goes on your butt.
Bedsider.org has birth control information and a lot more. And it's...
What do you think then? Arm or the butt?
There's a lot of tree branches and dry brush over here. We should probably move the bonfire over there.
I'm guessing Smokey liked that idea.
This is Richard Dawkins. Doing commercials is unfamiliar territory for me, but I'm inviting you to watch Road to Reason, a skeptic's guide to the 21st century, on Fairfax Public Access every Sunday. Each week, the hosts tackle wishful thinking, religion, pseudoscience, and the harm they cause, with a combination of facts, humor, and community involvement. They challenge believers to defend their faith and give you, the skeptic, a voice. With live call-ins for viewers and streaming on the World Wide Web, there's never a dull moment. Don't wait. Look at them now on Facebook and YouTube, and remember to watch Road to Reason, a skeptic's guide to the 21st century, or there'll be hell to pay.
You want to know something really liberating about critical thinking? It allows you to drop all your pretenses. As a critical thinker, there's a recognition that there are no more powerful words in the English language than "I don't know." It's pretty awesome, actually. Admitting you don't know shouldn't be viewed as an admission of weakness or insecurity. It's the only place where real learning and growth begin. Did you ever wonder what it is about being a child that makes life so much fun? What is it that kids have that we lose as we grow up? It's their sense of wonder and delight at discovering things. They know they don't know, and they can't wait to find out. They pester everyone with questions because they want to know everything. Unfortunately, as we get older, that sense of wonder pretty much gets beaten out of us. Socially, we're taught by our peers almost as soon as we start making friends that ignorance is not bliss. The name-calling, the ridicule, and being laughed at soon convince us that it's better to just make things up instead of admitting that we don't know. We get into this habit and pretty soon can even convince ourselves that we're experts in areas we know almost nothing about. We walk around wearing this pretense of knowledge like body armor, but really it's as thin as tissue paper because we know anyone, anywhere could find out what a fraud we are at any moment. Do you like living like that? Because I don't. And here's the thing, there's nothing wrong with not knowing. The truth is that saying "I don't know" is not any indication that you're a moron or lacking in any kind of intelligence. It just means you never learned or can't remember something. We are born not knowing, and it's the quest for knowledge and experience that keeps life fresh and keeps us alive. Some of the most miserable, hateful, and spiteful people I've ever known have been the ones who thought they knew exactly what was going on and didn't have anything more to learn. Don't try to tell them anything, they've got it all figured out. Those aren't the people who are changing the world for the better. They aren't even trying. It's those who want to learn, who want to discover, and want to grow. Those are the people upon whom we all depend to make the next big discoveries and take the next leap forward. They are the scientists, the inventors, the philosophers, and the leaders who can take our species to the next level in our evolution. We all have it in us to learn and grow. It starts with an honest appraisal of what we do know, what we are certain of, and being strong enough to admit that we have some more learning to do. I love critical thinking for teaching me this. I can't wait to learn more.
Well, that was a great message by Chris Shelton. We're going to get back to that in a second because that ties into something else I want to say. But we are now joined by Landon Taylor, a.k.a. Rational Warrior, a.k.a. Tombstone Da Deadman. It is such a pleasure to have you.
A lot of AKAs going on over there.
You seem to be a busy man.
Yeah, well, you know.
So I want to start with tying back into Chris Shelton. One of the things he said is, "I don't know." Those are not dirty words. Those are great things. All three of us are actually working with Peter Boghossian on a project with the Street Epistemology. He's putting out a new app called Atheos. You've written an awesome song that really captures a lot of those ideas of street epistemology. Can you tell me, like, a little street epistemology, how does that appeal to you, the idea of engaging constructively and positively with people?
I think the main thing is the fact that it's not as aggressive as some of the other tactics that have been used. Because what I found is that the more aggressive you are, sometimes when you're having these conversations with people, they tend to get defensive. And then they close their mind off to anything else you're saying, and now they're in the mode of their ego's been engaged. You think I'm stupid, you think I'm dumb. So now they're not listening to any of the points that you're making. The way that this particular tactic is used, I think, is not really productive for changing minds and having people just open their minds to new ideas. And that's why I like the street epistemology thing, because I think that tactic is more effective than the constant browbeating somebody and insulting them or whatever that you have you like that. So.
Especially for like one-on-one engagements.
Absolutely.
I think there is a place for debate from an audience to let people maybe on the fence see both sides, make up their minds. But you're right, it never works. If you're just yelling at a person saying, "That's stupid, man," they just shut down, and now their whole goal is to defend themselves and show why they're right and you're wrong. It's not to interact with you and see where the facts lead.
Right.
And also in talking to Anthony Magnabosco, who's been on the show, he's a big promoter of street epistemology. He even said at one point that he was an angry atheist. This is just a progression of moving towards a better way to discuss this with people without being so confrontational. But not only that, a lot of Christian apologists and ministers and teachers who are picking up on this street epistemology, they're starting to get scared. They've been telling their people that if these people approach you to run away, don't talk to them, come talk to us right away. So it seems to be a more effective way of having this discussion with people and to getting them to start thinking a little bit better and more critically.
Have you been able to, I know for me, I have a problem that I'll tend to try to get somebody logically and box them in, but at least now I'm aware, wait a second, this is not a good approach.
Right.
Have you been able to build this into your life at all and how you interact with people?
Yeah, I spend a lot of time, of course, like most of us, on social media, and where before, especially early on when I first started to become aware of the fact that I didn't believe in that stuff anymore, you feel lied to. And I think that's where a lot of the anger comes from. And you're surrounded by people who are telling you that you're wrong. So a lot of my tactic then was based on that anger. But now, applying that, I've seen on social media where I've actually had people to actually examine what they really believe and think about it and actually be open to criticism of it without it being labeled as criticism of them. And that's what a lot of times what happens, they use their belief system becomes like a shield. And it's something where if you're attacking that, they feel like you're attacking them. Using this tactic, I found a lot more, people be a lot more receptive of what I had to say than the old way that I was doing things.
And I guess one of the key ideas is that you don't try to pin somebody down on their belief and nail them on that.
Yeah.
It's much more open about, hey, that's interesting, how did you arrive at that conclusion?
Right.
You quickly get to the whole thought process underlying it,
Right.
and that's a lot less of a personal attack.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and you've write a lot of music about a lot of different subjects, and you do mention, and we'll listen to some of this here, and we'll discuss some of your lyrics. But you do talk about a lot of these points of these anti-science, anti-critical thinking in your music. In learning about street epistemology, are you starting to kind of redirect how you write lyrics, or
I would honestly say no.
Okay.
The reason being, my particular style musically is aggressive.
Right.
It's a bit angry.
Right.
While I try not to be insulting, the delivery is angry. So I kind of want to keep that same energy when I discuss those topics in there, because I think it grabs attention more.
It does, and I don't want to go change either. I was going to say, one of the reviews I came across on Atheist Nexus said that your album was the most cerebral album that they've ever come across in any genre. And it's just awesome. I feel so much the same way, and you have such a broad range, and we're going to run through a bunch of songs, try to hit on some of the topics, but you really do have, you go in depth and you cover a lot of important issues. So maybe we can get started. We're going to play the first clip here. We're just going to listen to about 30 seconds of it or so. And then
so this song is called Poison, I believe?
Yeah.
Who's the species that wallows in this puddle of mud? Who's the one that painted the planet in buckets of blood? Who's the one that begs a God for forgiveness of sin and turns right around the next day and does it again? Who's the money-hungry monster that poisons the air, kills his own kind and steals the land cause he can't share? Who points the finger at a devil trying to shift the blame and hides his hands because he know that they covered in blood stains? Yeah, it's just as you assuming it's nothing but these humans who like to blame mythology for everything they're doing. They pray for non-existent gods to clean up the mess, but never take responsibility, just claim it's a test. See that religion you've been given.
All right. So now I cut out lyrics to keep everything clean. So I did, some of the artistic beauty in these is sacrificed a little just to fit these into the little.
And we urge you to go out and listen.
Yeah, right. We'll make sure at the end, that you can check out. We'll tell you where you can check out his music and look into this. One of the points I like that you hit in that song. Who's the money-hungry monster that poisons the air, kills his own kind, steals the land, can't share? So with a lot of corporations now, they talk about externalities, and whether it's cigarette smoke or pollution or coal or destroying our atmosphere. Right. If that's not on their books, it's not their problem. It's your problem. It's my problem. It's everybody's problem.
Right.
How do we get around that? How much do you see that as religion playing into it? How much is just sort of ideology and just not being open to new facts?
I think there's a myriad of reasons behind that, but religion can be placed partially there. When you believe in prophecies that tell you that at some point all of this is going to end a certain type of way, I think we tend to blame a lot of the problems that we have on fictitious characters, like the devil, demons, things like that. But the truth is, the people that are destroying the planet other people that are on the planet. No supernatural spirits, no fictitious gods or demons or devils or whatever.
They're the
It's
metaphorical
us.
devils.
Right. It's us.
Yeah.
We're doing it. And so the only people that are going to solve a lot of these problems is us.
Right.
Right.
We
And
have to do it.
That's a big problem with climate change, is that some religious groups will say, oh, hey, this is God's work,
Yeah.
or we'd interfere, or this is all under God's control, we couldn't possibly change it.
Right.
And instead, you need to just sort of step back and look at the facts, listen to our experts that spend decades learning this stuff, and go from there. So it's almost just a different approach of, do you trust the science and scientific method,
Right.
or do you go by a different way?
Well, you know, the thing is, I think, when you have religious beliefs that say, well, the apocalypse is coming, Jesus is coming, there's Judgment Day, that completely alleviates, it's kind of what you said, is alleviates our responsibility
For anything.
For anything. And it's much easier at that point to say, okay, Jesus is coming anyway, so it doesn't matter
Exactly.
whether it's Jesus' will, it's God's will. And that's a very dangerous way of looking at the world, because at the end of the day, people have been saying Jesus has been coming for how long now? And
It's been 2,000
and
years.
it's been 2,000 years, and he's still not here yet. In the meantime, we're just going on this path, and it's very dangerous.
In the
Very
meantime,
dangerous.
we're choking. In the meantime, glaciers are melting.
Yeah.
In the meantime, all of these different things are taking place that we are responsible for. We did this. So it's our responsibility to try to do something and hope it's not too late.
Do you feel hopeful at all? Like, do you see things shifting? There's a lot more nuns now. Do you think that things are getting better, or do you think the anti-science is winning right now? I mean, I'm just amazed at how many people don't, the stuff that I would sort of take for granted as here's the correct approach to look at this, we seem like such a divided society.
Well, I got to be honest. I think as far as promoting those ideas that are destructive to our environment and other things in our society, I would say that the people on the other end of this conversation, they have money for funding, they have money to promote their ideas, they have money to push their stuff into the minds of kids and everybody else. And as far as pushing the message, they're winning at that. The thing that I think they're losing at is more people are questioning now, more than ever. So if it's incumbent upon the ones of us that are already there to make it easier for people to question.
And it's, you know, as you said, you brought up a very good point, money. And part of the reason why religion fits so well within this capitalistic model of society we live in, because, you know, at the end of the day, it's easy to preach something like climate change is no big deal.
Right.
So let's go ahead and start drilling everywhere in a corporation's pocket money. And it's all, at the end of the day, is, I hate to say Karl Marx, because people cringe at that name, but he said everything boils down to economics at one point or another, including religion.
And there's a lot of collusion between like right-wing money interest ideologues, that group, and religion. It's like, I don't really know if the Koch brothers care about gay marriage, but you know, we'll support your anti-gay, anti-women agenda if you'll bring voters to the booth to support our policies that really cripple the economic system for most people.
Absolutely.
Well, they cripple it for the 99% of the...
And he's got a song, we're going to go through that in a little bit. Let's jump to our next song, because we are going to try to get through a bunch of these.
And this one's called Anti-Science.
It's all smoke and mirrors, not impressive. I don't hear ya. Master philosophy, so now I guess we're supposed to fear ya. But this is double talk, judging by your wordplay. You're making up for lack of evidence, and now you compensate. You're just not looking strong. I think you need to step along. I hear you say you're seeking truth. I think you got your method wrong. Labeled an atheist, but I don't need a lexicon to find a word that signifies I don't believe in leprechauns. Remove from the tables the myths and the fables, and maybe you're able to find something a little more stable. And I'll admit that I don't know 100%, but I hardly be convinced with all the stories that you present. So get back, open up your eyes. Can't you see the world is falling?
All right, this is a great song, and you know, anti-science is a big thing that, you know, I like to talk about a lot. And you know, one of your lyrics here says, you know, it's all smoke and mirrors, not impressive, I don't hear ya. Mastered philosophy, so now I guess I'm supposed to fear ya. And this is kind of, yeah, you know, it kind of reminds me of the apologetics tricks that people use.
That's what it
you
was
know,
a dig at.
Yeah, and exactly, and you know, but it's continuing on. It says, but it's just double talk, and judging by your word play, I hear you say you're. I'm sorry, you're making up for lack of evidence, so now you compensate, and that's actually the biggest tactic of Christian apologists. So you know, they try to you hear it in debates. It's not about the evidence. It's all about how you can play this chess game, essentially, right?
Presuppositions, all of it.
Yeah. So and so how do people get out of listening to these apologists that are very smart at trying to play that game? How do you think what's the number one thing that people can use against that? What do you think that is?
I would say the exact same thing that caused me to become an atheist in the first place. I stopped giving the benefit of the doubt to everybody, the pastors, friends, family. Prove it or shut up.
Yeah,
that's pretty much it. And guys like William Lane Craig and other apologists like him, they're really good at playing this philosophy game. They set up a premise and then attempt to prove their premise using some of the most dishonest means I've ever seen. The way that I believe that you can kind of counteract that is if we just teach people. Do not give him the benefit of the doubt just because he's good at twisting philosophical arguments and making it sound good in a debate. Make him prove it. All of that stuff sounds good. Do you have any data to back it up? And if he says no, you tell him, bye-bye.
Right, but he'll never say no, and that's where it comes down to we need to educate people on critical thinking, because once you sort of understand that it's not an insult to the person to say, I don't understand, to explain how you got to that point,
Right.
walk me through it. Even in medicine with the most complicated thing, you can walk somebody through the steps, and that's what you're supposed to do. Or you can try to snow them if you don't know what's going on. You use jargon and big words.
Right.
They sound good, they don't know what you're saying, but you must know what you're saying because you got a title. And they rely on that exact thing. And it's funny, Sam Harris, Peter Boghossian, like some of these philosophers that are very plain spoken and concrete, how different they are from the philosophy of the apologists wielding.
Right. And one thing to, when we, the title of this song is called Anti-Science, and I just want to bring up, creationists, because that's a big debate right now. It's still a debate.
It shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be, but, when we talk about why people believe what they believe, for example, the biggest creationist right now that has a lot of money is Ken Ham. He runs Answers in Genesis, and he's a biblical literalist. I mean, literalist to the literal word. And he believes that, in the Genesis story, in the Noah's Ark and everything. And I give a talk sometimes on evolution and creationism, and, I often hear people tell me, well, if you can show these people the evidence, just show them the evidence, why wouldn't they change their mind? Well, it's not as simple as just showing them the evidence, because they have a whole worldview that's built upon the premises of the Bible. And the philosophy for these guys is if you remove creationism from the Bible, everything else crumbles. All of their supposed morals and whatever else the Bible teaches crumbles. And Ken Ham, rightly so, says, if we don't believe the Genesis story, why should we believe anything else in the Bible? And I think, when you get into this anti-science, it's not really about the evidence. And that's why you have these apologists, these people that, because the Genesis story, talking snakes, all this makes really no sense. If apologists went on stage and just said, oh, and there was a talking snake, no, they have to twist these things and try to appeal to the ignorance of scientific illiteracy.
So we can probably all agree that those are like fables and they don't have any rationality to them. How do you think your music sort of cuts past that? Like, we can't quite reach them through logic. You've got like a lot of emotion and power in there. Have you found that effective to sort of get people over that first hump?
Yeah, especially people who are already predisposed to that format of music. When you make those arguments or those points musically, and hip-hop is just a great genre to deliver a message in, it does affect them a certain way. Even if they don't necessarily agree with the entire context, there'll be certain points in there that they've wondered themselves. And for you to say it out loud, strongly, passionately, I find that it does work. Because I've had plenty of people who, they're not quite all the way on the side of atheists or whatever, but they have questions. And a lot of times, I know me growing up, I was told not to kind of question certain stuff. The adults in the room would look at me kind of weird when I asked certain questions that they had thought of themselves, but they were scared to actually express it because they've been inoculated against reason.
Right, and that's a lot of how religion kind of works, as that meme is faith is critical.
Right.
So don't even go there, don't even start to question or think.
Right.
And, how can people look at that honestly and say a better path to the truth is just closing my eyes, praying and trusting, as opposed to what skeptics say is, we'll give anybody a shot. Lay out your data and your evidence, let's hear the sides, and let's think about this critically.
Right.
And so if Richard Dawkins does this, he's being strident, he's out of control.
Right.
But he's really not. He's professor, he's calm, he's trying to teach and educate. And again, most skeptics aren't out there being belligerent. You're trying to educate and open eyes.
Right.
And we do have those people that are just so angry that, and I've seen within the atheist community, very angry atheists that all they care about is bashing not just religion, but people who follow certain religious tenets.
Right.
And that's just bad. It shouldn't be that way. And I think, but again, as you said, it's that anger.
Yeah.
Luckily, that anger should be channeled, and like you do, and your music is angry, but it's giving a positive message.
Right.
Instead of just bashing people. Yes, you're angry, but you're saying, hey, wake up.
Right. I'm not angry at you.
Right.
I'm angry at the fact that you were lied to.
Right.
And you're continuing to allow them to lie. So
and
get on board.
Yeah.
Get on board.
And that's a big, very big and important distinction is where this anger and how it's channeled, and but people like Richard Dawkins or Sam Harris or Peter Boghossian or anybody else that's a skeptic and has been a leader in the skeptic community for a while now, they're looked upon as these hateful, angry atheists. Well, yeah, they're angry. There's a reason for it, So we need to channel that. But that kind of leads into that whole street epistemology, and why now we're seeing different tactics.
And multiple techniques to get the message across.
Techniques.
All right, let's keep moving on. Next up is Ballad of the Non-Believer.
Like most of you, I was indoctrinated with religion. Had a time when I was much too young to make decisions. Dragged by the hand without permission, lacked the cognitive ability to see the contradictions and the superstitions. I know my mother really thought that she was doing right, cause after all, this wasn't a war she was taught to fight. Buried under layers of prayers, emotional attachments, and every other program and attached with a sense of common unity involvement. No actual incentive to question all of the sermons from the pulpit. This is how they introduced the idea, firmly rooted in the fear of question validity, just to hear. It's not innocent, it sets a bad precedent. Internalized credulity for things that lack evidence. Some people keep this way of thinking for their whole lives. The need for critical thinking is never realized. I don't wanna hear about the books that you have read. Explain to me the way you see the thoughts inside your head. Not filtered through the garbage you regurgitate instead. Your thoughts are just a program with which you are in bed. All I really wanna do is show you there is freedom. Eliminate those primitive myths, you don't need them. The clergy only trolling for power, so don't feed them. And since they can't prove it, remove it and don't believe them.
It's hard not to bob your head to this.
Actually, we got to turn the camera inside the booth because those guys are rocking a lot better than we are. But so there's a few great lyrics in here. Again, you have so many songs, so I really do encourage people to go track down your music, Tombstone Da Deadman, and take a listen. So you start off with, like most of you, I was indoctrinated with religion at a time when I was much too young to make decisions. Talk about that, Lo. Is that an accident that religion gets you when you're young? And
I don't believe it's an accident at all. I think it's by design. So in that case, I am definitely a believer in intelligent design. See, when a child is that young, they haven't formed any sort of opinions at all, and they don't have the actual cognitive ability to do so. They're looking at mommy, they're looking at daddy, looking at grandma, and everything that they're doing, the child is mimicking. So if grandma is talking about Jesus did this, and God did this, or Allah did this, the child is picking up all of those cues, and they're buying into it too. Before they had a chance to really experience the world and learn anything, before they had a chance to learn the scientific method, they learn religion. So no, I think it's a great way for them to keep their virus going, spreading and evolving. So no, I definitely don't think that that's done by accident. I think that's done by design.
Yeah, and so I know some people like Richard Dawkins, Andy Thompson have talked about indoctrination, childhood indoctrination as child abuse, and I kind of feel that same way too. You can't take chips of leaded paint and feed them to your kid and know that it's going to give them neurological dysfunction. But if we look at the data and say, you know what, when you hit kids' brains from 0 to 7 years old with this constant don't think critically, don't teach them those skills, like you said at the end of your song, for some people, this does stay with them their whole lives.
Right.
So, where do you come down on what can we do? Like, do we step in between parents, or do we move culture to understand critical thinking is important for kids?
Well, see, this is why it's very important to have a separation between church and state.
Right.
Because our public school system should definitely be separate from that. That's where we get them at. And I think a lot of the curriculum, they attempt to place certain lessons about critical thinking within the curriculum. I think it's time for that subtlety to end.
Yeah.
We need specific classes on
Right.
critical thinking, starting when they're in like elementary school and going up to at least by the time they get to the 12th grade. So when they go in college, we can have a hope that they are critical thinkers, and it really affects a lot of other things other than just religion. Politics, relationships. Critical thinking is important, and it's something that we should just stop trying to cut around the edges on, and stop trying to stomp around the fire and stomp right on the fire.
And you make a good point, which is, I think, why we see a lot of extremely religious politicians that are trying to destroy our public educational system, because they know that that's where there's a potential. I mean, our public education system is already hurting.
Yeah.
And it's bad. As you said, we need to completely change it and change it for the better. But I am seeing now, they want to gut public education, want to push forward legislation on school vouchers so that you can take your kid and use taxpayer money and go to a private religious school and things like that. I think it's, as you said, it's not done on accident. This is all by design.
And that's pulling money out of the already stressed system, and it's guaranteed to lead to
And I guarantee you this, once they have changed history and all these different things that they've been trying to do, like you guys was talking about in the earlier segment, they'll put all the money in the world back into public schools. It's how it works.
Yeah, once they know they've gotten control of all the school boards, all of the, then it's okay, and that's going to be,
Once Geppetto has all the strings in place, they'll put money.
Well, it's like when religion tries to claim in the Middle Ages, hey, it was all religion is where we got all this great education. All the scientists were religious. Sure, once you control everything and you are the education, then you can be pro-education.
Right.
Let's jump on. How about next one?
Okay, the next song is called 1%. I think we can all know where this is going.
Hey, stupid, you really think they care about you? You think they shed a single tear inside their bed without you? Hey, stupid, I think you're lacking common sense. You're only really here to benefit the 1%. Hey, stupid, that's right, you said that you ignore them. But that don't matter, cause you still be bending over for them. Hey, stupid, you might want an investigation and find out how they always killing you with legislation. The middle class is so violently getting.
Yeah, so this is, I guess, obviously the song is about, and you can see the anger here, coming out about, basically the 1% and how they're totally duping people into voting against their own interests. That's what I'm assuming this song's about, correct?
Oh, yeah.
So, one of the lyrics you say here says, that's right, hey, stupid, that's right, you said that you ignore them, as if that's
that fixes the problem.
But that don't matter because you still bending over for for them. So in a way, it's like almost like saying, "Well, I'm going to be ignorant about the whole thing," and is ignorance really bliss?
No, actually, it's not. And that's the thing, because they'll tell you and the rest of us, the 99%. Well, you guys all have a vote. Yeah, but they have a vote and money and influence. So I think their money, power to vote, and influence trumps my one vote. And at a certain point, we have to get to a point where they're not allowed to use the fact that they have completely benefited from the infrastructure of our society to then go and be able to structure legislation around the things they want, the things they need, and ignore all the rest of us. And they'll tell us in a minute, well, you pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, or you can climb the ladder. How can we climb the ladder after you went to the top and pushed it down?
Right. And we have less social mobility in the United States than England was a monarchy, and he's done a better job there.
Right.
And you make a good analogy. They climbed the ladder, perhaps, or they were at the top already and they pushed the ladder up. So now what we need to do is not only build a ladder, we need to find the material to build a ladder.
And stop the jokers from pushing it over.
And then once you build that ladder, it gets pushed over again. And it's like this, there's been a lot of talk about privilege here in this country, and the people that are privileged don't even know that they're privileged.
Right.
They have no idea. And when they say these things, they have no clue where they started from. And yes, there are people that did start from the bottom and boot themselves up. But when you look at the world from a statistical standpoint, when you look at the world from a scientific, how many of those people actually are there compared to everybody else?
Right.
You know,
absolutely. Proportion-wise.
Proportion-wise.
Right.
It's very difficult if you start from nothing to become a 1%er.
Right.
It almost never happens, because if it did happen, there would be no poor people. If it was that simple. Right?
Because I see plenty of people work hard. If you all it takes for you to do is early in the morning, look at the bus stop. See all those people out there going to work. They work hard, and they're not rich.
No.
I'd love to see the Mitt Romneys telling people to pull them up to like walk a few miles in other people's shoes and see if they could do the real work instead of picking apart corporations.
I have an idea that they wouldn't be able to, but that's just my opinion.
The interesting thing is, why do people still, even though they live this reality, they live it every day, they wake up every morning, they work very hard, but are still poor, they barely have any money in their savings, they barely are making it paycheck by paycheck, they pull themselves up by the bootstraps. Why do they keep voting for people who write legislation that goes completely against them? I mean, why can't they see that?
I have a hypothesis on that. Notice I didn't say theory. It's a
hypothesis. Very correct.
I think for much the same reason why people still buy into religious ideas that bore no fruit. The prayer, the power of prayer. There's no power in prayer. And they do it all the time. I think it's the same with the American dream thing. It's much like a lot of things in this country. There's a religious mindset. There's a religious mindset when it comes to the Constitution now, where they look at that like that's a holy document. It's the same thing with this American dream ideology. George Carlin said they call it the American dream because you have to be asleep to believe it. And it's the same thing with that. We want to believe. We want to have some sort of hope. People want to have that hope. And I think in their desire to have that, it allows them to ignore very real things that are happening right in front of their face.
Wow, that's a very powerful way to really delude people.
Yeah.
But what would you say about the media's responsibility or failure to sort of help educate, talk about there's fair and balanced now, so what should the media be doing?
Well, first of all, the one thing they have to stop doing, they have to stop allowing these pundits and politicians to get up there and spew their talking points. It's like they have a clipboard of everything that they agreed earlier that they were going to say as answer to things, whether or not it's logical, whether or not it's evidence-based or whatever. The journalists have to do their jobs and go, excuse me, sir, but we did our own independent research. That stat you're using,
But that money has disappeared to fund journalists doing research very purposely, like everything. There's no money, there's no time, so now you go to a place that's going to spew these talking points, and now you have a news segment.
Yeah, that's what they do. And the other thing, I really can't stand it. Instead of them challenging what's being said, they'll go to the person that has a complete opposite political view, and then, what do you think about that? And they want this guy to debunk this guy, and that guy to debunk this. You're the journalist.
You're the journalist, right? Do your job.
Right, do your job.
But it's good entertainment to watch them fight back and forth.
But that's the problem that's with these 24-hour news channels. They need to make it entertaining, otherwise people don't watch.
It's all clickbait.
It's all clickbait,
it's all clickbait.
Right.
All right, let's move on to the next one. We're going to talk Empire.
Ashes to ashes and dust to dust, I know everything falls apart as part of life's flow. And then in time, everything you ever knew will go away.
All things must pass. You should be happy you got a chance to share a little slice of sentience, no matter how short or small and insignificant. So when the day comes that I'll put an end to it, reflect upon your life and the last minutes that you spend with it. Just think about the people that you have touched and the ones that you love so much. Accomplishments and failures, fun times and all of the such. Or not, cause you can choose to go into the darkness screaming, disturbing all of your people. But to me it has no meaning.
So I want to talk about just kind of the ethics of a good life in this. Most of us recognize that we're going to die, and there's not going to be some afterlife where then we can start our real game and start being good people. And I just, your ethics feel so rich just from reading all of your songs, versus you have some people that seem to outsource it to religion, so they're self-righteous. And so just talk about atheist ethics versus what else you see out there.
For me, I've heard a lot of times religious people say, and theists of various different denominations, say, well, why do you value life if you don't believe that there's something that happens after you die? I think it's just the opposite of that.
Right.
The fact is, because I'm pretty certain there is no after party waiting for me, this has to be my after party. Anything that I want to accomplish, I need to do it now, because I only have a limited amount of turns around the sun, and then I'm done. And what I did while I was here is what's going to speak for me and my legacy long after I'm gone. So for me, because I don't believe in something after that, I have to hold myself responsible for my actions and the things that I do on a daily basis. And I have to weigh that in comparison to what my actions do to affect others. And that, to me, is a far superior moral code than this idea that all I have to do is say I'm sorry to the cosmic elf.
Right, not even the person, but to somebody
right,
else.
you know, and not make amends to the person that I hurt, but to the cosmic elf that says, I'm watching you, I saw you do that, don't you got something you want to say to me? No.
Right.
So I think our ethics are, I mean, at least speaking for myself as an individual, because I can't speak for all atheists, but I think that's a lot more superior than their idea of it.
I believe that as well. I mean, you know, it's, and not every Christian thinks this way, but a lot of Christians are, you know, behave a certain way because of this fear of punishment or reward if they do what the Bible says that they do. But I think there's a lot more value to a moral ethic if it comes from within, if it comes from you wanting to do good for the sake of it.
Right.
And you know, it's and you know, one of your lyrics here says, just think about the people that you have touched and the ones that you love so much, accomplishments and failures, fun times and all the such. I think that's what life should be about. I know a really good friend of mine who was a born-again Christian, very young, and he is now deconverted to he's an atheist now, and he tells me how much of life he's lost being a Christian, and how much he's missed out. And he's not going to get that back. Those years are gone. And he feels so far behind in life because of it. For financially, from an educational perspective, he was more worried about burning and going to hell than he was worried about getting himself educated or going to college or, you know, this,
and
that,
that's
and the
where
other.
the anger comes from.
And that's where the
anger comes from.
But what do you feel about the examined life? You know, you have a nice line in here about you should appreciate that you were sentient and here for a little while.
Yeah.
So how important is it to just be hedonistic and soak in all the pleasure you can versus to really fully think about things and how you treat other people?
I think that there doesn't need to be a disconnect between having a good time and thinking about all of this stuff. Because for me, a lot of times when I want to have a good time, I think about all of this stuff. To me, being educated or being aware and just examining your place in the cosmos, that's not a boring thing.
No.
Not to me, you know, so I don't make a separation between the two. For me, it's all part of the game. And you might as well do it now because when the lights is out, nothing else is going on up here, so you might as well do it now.
And it's not about going out and partying every day, or, you know, but it's about living a fulfilling life. And part of that comes from understanding as you said, your place in the cosmos. I mean, we're reaching exciting times now. I mean, Pluto, we're just there now. We've been to Pluto. You know, very quickly. We kind of flew by Pluto, but we now can see Pluto and we know what it looks like. And to think that is the last planet that any of us in this lifetime are going to see for the first time. We're not going to go to there's not going to be another planet that we can see.
That's true.
That's, to me, that's rich.
It's amazing.
And Carl Sagan, I think, was trying to portray that, the meaning of and the uniqueness of us in the cosmos.
And there's a lot of transcendence in science and just like this whole thing. You don't need mystical stuff to do the real stuff. Can we run, we've got 2 more songs, just a few minutes. Can we run the next 2 songs and then we'll go ahead and talk about them until we run out of time?
My father was elusive, mostly cause he was abusive. Pulling knives out on my mother, rageaholic, undisputed. Did a tour in Vietnam, had these issues with his mom. And feeling like he wasn't one that did his way of thinking harm. I guess the things he must have saw really stuck up in his craw. From my perspective, didn't like him, thought his heart was black as tar. Mother had to leave him for fear that one day he'd kill us all. Without the money he brought in financially, we'd start to fall. This is a common occurrence, the type of disturbance. But many of my peers back then did the family such disservice. No form of support, financially or otherwise. Just lots of drama shaping how the world is seen through children's eyes. No correspondence with him, heard he moved up to New Jersey. Started preaching for some church, yeah, that's right, you heard me. The next time I saw him, it was in the city mall. Drunk himself to death, I guess that's just the path that he was on.
Why you producing him? You didn't know how you were going to provide.
Limited options have got me feeling boxed in. As best laid plans and dreams are headed where the stop ends. How do I smile when everything is down inside the door? I can't reveal the struggle to the family, and so I hide. Keep them distracted with this mask of overconfidence. Conceal the way I feel, but your reality's incompetent. And being the shoulder that everyone else can cry on. My life continues with this game and really starts to pile on. Health issues arise, many loved ones have died. Many times have I tried to shrug it and take it in stride. As all the bonds I've made slowly start to slip away. When those closest to me start to notice I don't look the same. It's kinda twisted, feeling so damn pessimistic. Pretending I'm not worried when really my mind's drifting. To everybody else these songs are only music, but to me they're everything. My only hope, I gotta use it.
I hold my hand up high for the people surrounding me, and that's down with me. I take snaps, not the truth, but they don't see that I'm falling down. I'm falling down, yo. I keep a smile on my face for my fans and my family. Tired of the insanity. I say this because I don't want them to beat that I'm falling down. Yeah, I'm falling down.
So those songs are great. I mean, they're really personal. I really felt, you know, I just had a different view as soon as I heard that. Why did you put it out there? I mean, what were you trying to get at? What's the reaction been to that?
Well, the first song played, Man Up. I wanted to talk about my father and how his inactivity in my life affected everything else, my perceptions and everything for the longest time, but I didn't know how to present it or how to come at it. It just so happens that I had a conversation with my brother about it. And from that conversation, it inspired me to write that song. And I know I'm not the only one. The response I've got from that song was pretty big. And I noticed that people cross demographics, ethnic groups, whatever. Anyone that's had that experience of an abusive parent who then like completely divorces themselves from your life has had similar emotions about it. So I put that out there, and I usually don't go get that personal in the song, but I felt like that was important to do.
I was gonna say, I haven't had that experience, but that's certainly still connected with me. I could really empathize. You know, it's a very powerful song.
Yeah, and the second one, Falling Down, you know, in hip hop, there's a lot of, you know, braggadocious lyrics, people hyper confident, hyper masculinity.
Right.
This song, I wanted to expose the fact that we all have these moments of indecision. Our confidence is lowered. Life will kick you kind of hard sometimes, and everything that you thought about yourself, everything that you, this armor you built up, this mental self-defense can be broken down. It just depends on the circumstance, and I wanted to like express that musically.
Good. Well, we got about 10, 15 seconds left to go. I just want to say the last song really hits me too. I've been there, so it's great. But thanks for being on the show. We really appreciate sharing some of your lyrics, and we urge everybody to go out, check out Tombstone Da Deadman.
And we'll post some stuff on our Facebook so you can get to his songs easily.
Awesome.
Catch you next time.